Welcome back to 7th Circle Gaming. Today on the channel we're going to be discussing Elex. And let's get started as we always do here with full disclosure. Pause the video now and read through those more, and let's move on. And we're going to talk about Immersion. The game is earning a 5 out of 15 for Immersion. It's going to attempt to pull players into its world with a third-person view. The world that players are going to explore is a post-apocalyptic, Earth-like world with the eponymous Elex as a magical MacGuffin, and kind of a currency as well. It's also going to attempt to use challenge to immerse players into the world. Combat in the game is a very stamina-focused system with weapon durability. And there are also story elements for players to uncover, and they're discovered fairly organically through just wandering around the world. The game is also going to attempt to immerse players into its world with player agency. And this is where the game is a little bit different from what you might expect. It's largely interactions with NPCs and that shape the character. The map is also blank until an area is visited or a quest from a particular character specifically mentions a location. So let's take a quick look at this game world that we've just been discussing. Obviously, it's a third-person perspective. We can see a couple of things about the user interface. It's fairly minimalistic. And let's move on because I do want to hit on that map that we just mentioned. This is early in the game, but we have visited a couple of places and spoken to the NPCs there, and that's why those icons are appearing on the map. If we hadn't spoken to any of those characters, the map would be completely blank with no icons. So, that's all for immersion. Let's move on to difficulty. And the game has earned a 2 out of 15 for difficulty. The user interface, as we saw earlier, doesn't really increase the difficulty. It has some difficulty settings, they are not described at all. On the other hand, the mouse and the gamepad seem to work equally well for playing the game. So for that reason, the game is earning that 2 out of 15. And let's move on to lasting appeal. What's going to keep players playing through the game? In other words, it is possible to play through the game as either a paragon or renegade, borrowing that phrase from Mass Effect. It is a fairly slow-paced game, so it is going to reward players who have a substantial amount of time to play through it. There is no downloadable content or mod available for the game, and there's already a sequel available. So players may choose to invest in purchasing the sequel, especially since the price difference is seemingly so little. So then, what is the game's where does the game stand in the final analysis? Overall, the game is in a 4 out of 15. Now, why is that? Mostly because a sequel exists, it is not an easy game, and it does seem to need a long play session. Now, if we put our subjectivity hats on for a moment, I would just like to say that the game really does two interesting things. That despite all of its faults and all of the things that the game has difficulty with, the game does two things really interestingly. The NPC interactions that shape how the character develops and how other NPCs react to the character is really interesting. And the fact that the map is completely blank until an area is explored or an NPC specifically mentions a thing is particularly unique, especially for a game of this age. So, putting on that's all. We're going to now put our objective hats back on. And if you watched all the way to the end, thank you very much for doing so. Do all the other YouTubey things and take a look at the coming soon list. Thanks very much for joining us on 7th Circle Gaming, and goodbye.